Picture total darkness. Not city dark, operational dark. No ambient light, no sound except the low-frequency hum of rotors at altitude. You're looking through a helmet-mounted NVG at 1,200 feet and slung tight against a paratrooper's chest, secured in a custom MOLLE harness rated for high-altitude freefall, is 65 pounds of controlled aggression. His eyes are open behind a pair of Optix K9 AR goggles, the 2026 iteration now fielded by 2 NATO Special Operations units. He is not panting, he is not anxious, he is perfectly, almost unnervingly still. We called them MWDs, military working dogs. The official designation makes them sound like equipment. That's not entirely wrong, but it doesn't come close to telling the full story. We've trained them. We've deployed with them, we've watched them clear rooms in the pitch black while operators were still stacking on the door. And what most people never understand, what the footage never captures, is that the dog isn't just a weapon, he's a system. A biological system so refined, so precisely selected over decades of operational feedback that modern military science is still struggling to replicate what his nose can do. This is a tactical study, not a list, not a countdown. A breakdown of what actually separates a high-value canine asset from a trained guard dog and why these 3 breeds are the gold standard. Shape. Every handler we worked with, from JSOC to GSG-9 to Tier 1 units we can't name, eventually boils it down to 3 things. 3 qualities that separate a washout from a warfighter. Olfactory threshold, bite inhibition, environmental hardness. Get all 3 in one dog? You have an asset worth more than most vehicles in the motor pool. Start with the nose. The Belgian Malinois, the breed that's dominated tactical circles for the last 30 years, carries roughly 225 million scent receptors. Humans have 6 million. But here's what most people get wrong. It's not just volume of receptors that makes a working dog elite. It's odor threshold, the minimum concentration of a target scent the dog can isolate from environmental noise. We're talking about parts per trillion. Think about that. Not parts per million, per trillion. A dog can detect the trace vapor signature of a primary explosive compound through a steel container buried under 2 feet of soil with active air movement. No machine we currently field does that reliably. But olfactory talent alone means nothing without what handlers call bite inhibition, and this is the pillar the public completely misunderstands. Bite inhibition is not about making a dog less aggressive, it's about control of engagement termination. A dog with poor inhibition bites and holds until physically removed. A dog with elite inhibition bites on command, maintains pressure with devastating efficiency, and, this is critical, releases cleanly on a single cue, even in a live, chaotic scenario. That release capability is what transforms an animal into a precision tool. A dog that won't release on command in a hostage environment is a liability, not an asset. The third pillar, environmental hardness, is where most candidates wash out of selection. We test them young, we expose them to helicopter rotor wash, flashbang detonations at varying distances, gunfire, suppressed and unsuppressed, moving vehicle extractions, crowd noise, tight urban geometry. Most dogs exhibit some stress response to one or more of these. A truly hard dog, the rare one, processes all of it as neutral, not suppressed fear, genuinely neutral. The dog that walked onto that jump plane with us, he'd been through over 40 hours of acclimatization to airborne ops. By deployment, the sound of rotors was just background noise. Here's why the Belgian Malinois became the apex choice for special operations units across 3 continents. 60 to 65 pounds, that's the operational weight range, not the 70 or 80-pound show standard. Leaner, denser, built for sustained output. That power-to-weight ratio is the key variable. When a Malinois hits a human target at full sprint and their top operational speed hovers around 30 miles per hour in a straight line, you're dealing with the equivalent of a 200-pound man delivering a focused strike to a single anatomical point. The PSI generated at peak bite pressure in a working line MOW runs between 195 and 300 pounds per square inch, depending on the dog and the target location. For reference, a human jaw averages roughly 150 PSI. But raw numbers miss the architecture. The Malinois skull is built for fast, repetitive engagement, shallower temporalis muscle attachment compared to a Rottweiler or Boerboel, which means quicker bite release cycling, less jaw fatigue over a sustained operation, and superior mobility during the engagement. It's not the strongest bite in the working dog world, it's the most tactically functional one. The Dutch Shepherd, criminally underused in most Western units, dominant in Dutch and Belgian SOF, brings a different profile. Slightly heavier coat, broader environmental adaptability, exceptional problem-solving in high-distraction scenarios. Where a Malinois can occasionally run hot, chasing stimuli outside the operational boundary, the Dutch Shepherd tends to hold operational focus with what trainers describe as a higher self-regulation ceiling. Think of the Mal as the Ferrari, the Dutch Shepherd is the Porsche 911 GT3, less flashy, equally fast, more forgiving at the edge. German Shepherds, working lines only, not AKC show stock, which is a different animal entirely, are the legacy choice. Heavier, slightly slower, but their scent drive and handler bond make them irreplaceable for long-duration tracking and article searches. A working line GSD deployed for 12 hours of sustained scent work will often outlast a younger Mal in sheer operational endurance, particularly in environmental extremes. In 2026, we're seeing all three breeds now being fitted with titanium dental crowns where teeth have been fractured in prior operations, a procedure that was uncommon a decade ago, now standard in several NATO canine units for extending operational lifespan. A dog losing a canine at 7 years old doesn't have to retire anymore. The crown holds, the dog continues to work.
Shape. Nobody talks about what it's actually like on the other end of that bite. We've spoken with professional decoys, the trainers who put on the suit and take the hit day after day to build these dogs. Here's what they describe. The suit smells like 20 years of fear, like rubber, dried sweat, and something underneath that you can't wash out, probably because you can't. It's thick, but not in the way people imagine. You can feel heat, you can feel grip strength. What you cannot feel, not clearly, is the initial strike. It happens too fast. What you do feel is the stop. 65 pounds moving at 30 miles per hour hits a static body like a sled strike to the padded arm. Decoys consistently describe it as a concussive event, not pain exactly, but a full-body shockwave. The grip that follows, that's where you feel everything. The jaw locks, the rotation starts. A Malinois will attempt to pull and thrash to increase tissue damage, which is exactly what they're bred to do. The arm doesn't move because the suit is rigid enough, but your shoulder knows something real just happened. Experienced decoys say the hardest part isn't the hit, it's staying calm while the dog works, because if you panic, you trigger escalation. The dog reads cortisol changes, it reads micro-movements. The best decoys we've met describe it as a controlled surrender. Absorb the hit, don't struggle, let the handler make the call. It's counterintuitive every time. This is also why bite inhibition training is so critical. When a handler calls off the bite in that environment, the dog has to trust the command over every instinct telling him to hold. That's not obedience, that's a relationship built over years.
We need to talk about the part of this that doesn't make the recruitment posters. The bond between a handler and a working dog is not sentimental, it's operational. You spend more hours with that animal than with your own family in a deployment cycle. You read his body language before you read the terrain. You know what his breathing pattern sounds like when he's locked on a scent versus when he's tracking ambient noise. He knows your scent better than he knows anything else on the planet. And then there's retirement. Most working dogs have a 6 to 9 year operational window. Some push 10 with clean health records. When a dog retires out of active service, the handler almost always adopts them. But what happens to the dog psychologically is something the canine community is only now beginning to take seriously. These animals were built for high-stimulation environments. They were selected for it. If you've worked with a canine unit, as a handler, a decoy, a vet, or even a kennel tech, drop what you know in the comments. The best intel in this community has always come from the people who were actually there.